In this episode of Design and Built, we attempt to answer one of the age-old questions. Can you TD42 convert a Patrol in 4.2 days? We cover the full engine conversion, including some custom fab and the huge amount of readily available parts, as well as testing the conversion out on the York Peninsula.
Today in another episode of no design at all and just bolt parts that fit on, we're going to put in TD42 engine where the old RD was. Not very common. We thought we'd do something a little bit different on the channel this week. We've got a big trip organised for next year. 1800Ks unsupported.
Yeah, that's something we should mention, isn't it? This is a prequel essentially to a big trip. So doing a conversion on this, and then we're probably tackling one of the most remote tracks in Australia.
11 deserts, 2 weeks. You'll see it here first.
It's about time we officially introduced Nick to the channel, and you've probably seen him on here a few times before. Nick and I have ridden bikes all over the country together, and he's become a really good friend of mine. He's also a mad keen four-wheel driver and an expert trip planner, so expect to see a lot more of him on my channel. Side note, Nick is also a really talented graphics designer, and he does all the graphics for my channel. Bit of a change of scenery today. We're in Nick's shed, and we are doing a engine conversion on his Patrol. So I'm going to hand you over to Nick, and Nick is going to talk you through why we're doing it, which, I'm still a little bit unsure about why we're putting a 4.2 in, but Nick's going to run you through the real reason.
That Fraser trip, which might not have dropped yet, I did my first gear on the gearbox in the RD28, and that was probably the 5th gearbox I've been through on the 2.8, and I was getting sick of the changing of the gearboxes and running 35s on the 2.8 stock is no good. And I thought, maybe some of the subscribers want to see something a bit different to the Barrett conversion, and I've actually opted for the GQ silver top motor because there was a bloke on Marketplace selling the whole conversion kit, drive shafts. It has an 11mm pump. It's got a 16G turbo. That was half of the reason. There was literally a guy selling, hey, here's everything you need to do a TD conversion. So I was like, all right, looks like we're doing a TD conversion. But it looks good. Got a new clutch. We've got a new water pump on it. I haven't tidied this one up yet, but it looks like it's okay. Alright, so I had to swap the transfer case over because I've got reduction gears in this. So I put the transfer case on the back of the gearbox, and the gearbox is in. Release bearing. It looks a bit, it might be fine, but it looks like it's been out in the weather for a while, so I've got another set of that I'll chuck in. Really annoyingly, I've got all of the input shaft seals and that, all the seals and stuff at the front of that gearbox that is probably going to arrive Monday, which is after the motor's going to be bolted up, so probably not doing that. And yeah, and then hopefully we drop the motor in today, and we look at we've got to figure out how the cool piping is going to work. The exhaust, I've got an exhaust for it. One of the reasons I went to the TD over doing the Barrett conversion is because there's so much availability of parts and stuff like that. So for example, on the silver top TDs, you don't have to change this passenger side mount at all. That'll bolt straight up to the TD. The driver side one on the TD versus the RD is slightly different, and Patrol Apart make an engine mount that bolts straight up to your motor and then puts the engine mount in the right spot to line up with the original one, so you don't have to cut the chassis, you don't have to weld anything. I know the channel, that's what it's about, but this is it's a couple of weeks before Christmas, and we want to go on tour. We want to go on another tour, so let's do the 4.2 and the 4.2 days. And
it goes without saying, obviously I was really keen to Barrett convert this, and I was even more keen to do some custom fab, but that's not the path we're going down at all. But it's all right. I think it's gonna be better than it was, which is the main thing, because it was a bit of a slug on Fraser.
It came on the motor, and this is a GQ motor, so I'm assuming this is a GQ compressor pump. Because mine was the 2.8, I want to run the old compressor, and this is one of those parts that Patrol Apart make, and this is a part that allows you to use the 2.8 compressor on the 4.2, and it bolts straight up. I haven't checked the thread, but I'm assuming Patrol Apart has.
Bang!
Look at that, bolts straight in. I'm happy it's going to be an easy conversion. I'd love to be touring in 4.2 days, but just after Christmas. That is a big... It's actually the same as Richard's diff that we did. So, two Dougs. Same torque spec as the diffs. So Richard's just pulling out the clutch slave cylinder on the RDs on a different spot. So Richard's just pulling that out for us. We've pulled out another couple of bits like the heater hose lines up here. We've pulled them out because they're different. Pulled the old overflow tank out, that's different. We're getting pretty close now to putting the motor in.
So we tried to just test fit the engine and we ran into a few dramas. So explain GQ engine, GU box.
Yeah, so this is a GQ engine and it came with a GQ box, but obviously the GQ box doesn't fit the GU, so I bought a GU box and just put that bell housing and everything from that onto this. And Richard's found a dowel. Oh yeah, you can see it here. There's two male to male dowels trying to dock, and it looks like my starter motor's a 3-bolt. 3-bolt starter, and I'm looking down the barrel of 2 bolts on my side of the motor. So I reckon, unfortunately, engine back out, this bell housing back on with the 3 bolts and no dowel.
Yep.
And then we should be sweet. Still got.
Okay, so we've swapped bell housings over. We've had a bit of a think about it, and we think that we had a GU bell housing on a GU box, but now we're swapping to the GQ bell housing, which has the 3 bolts and the dowels in the right spot. So old versus new. So we'll bolt that up and then go motor round 2.
It's probably 3 Milwaukee Dougs, 1 Kincrome Doug. I should measure the torque specs, but we're not going to. It's going to be fine.
No need.
I'm sure it's come apart and back together so many times before, and no one else has measured the Dougs, and it's been fine.
We don't have time for that, mate.
Now, for the last time, a motor is going to cross this rad support. The very last time. After this is what's staying in here. It'll do a milling.
We had the motor in, we tried to bolt it up, and you could just feel it pulling the rubbers, so something wasn't right, and we sort of established that it was a cross member.
Yeah, after trying a couple of cross members, I had the GU TD42 one on there, and it just wasn't pulling right. So we tried a few different ones, ended up settling on that TD42 GQ one, which is this one here on the left.
Little change of scene from Nick's video. We're in my shed now, and I'm doing a little repair for him. So he managed to snap off the turbo oil drain in the sump. Now, it is a steel sump, which really surprised me. And it was pretty easy to weld this fitting in. So basically what happened was there was a threaded fitting in there before. I don't even know that it was supposed to have a fitting. It might have just been an aftermarket thing, but I just cleaned it all up and then welded this fitting on. I'd rather go dash, but Nick's using just rubber hoses. So I've tigged this up now and hopefully it doesn't leak. We're day 2.
Day 3, motor's in, it's not bad. We're nearly there, as you can tell from the sump being off. No cooler being on.
No air path, no water. Nick has cleaned up the sump. I painted it black since then in the best can of Dulux paint I could find.
Not a sponsor, could be. Genuine Nissan. Torque specs. Get that one right. Oh yeah, hear that sand.
All right, Nick.
Finally doing up the sump, hopefully for the last time. See you bottom end. See you never.
Run us through what you've bought and why, and you could have probably used what you've had, but you think there's a better option?
Yeah, so the RD intercooler has 2 ports going out the same side. I was going to use that. Richard said not ideal because heat soak or something to do with the pipe going across the top of the cooler, so it got suckered into some efficiency calculation of cool air is better for efficiency. So this is basically a free intercooler because it'll pay for itself with fuel efficiency. Oh, stickers! Comes with stickers. It's the HBD kit, not a sponsor, could be. Bought the kit because we wanted stuff like this that you don't get when you buy it off Marketplace. So we're going to chop a scoop into the bonnet. Don't love the look of the scoop, but it's good for it'll get the extra airflow in there that we want. And look at the size of the cooler. Stoinker. Could have gone a front mount. Didn't want one for heat soak, and everyone talks about the TD42 being a kettle, so trying to avoid putting anything else in front of the radiator. especially that it'll be hot.
Alright, so this kit comes with pretty much everything you need to plumb it and everything you need to mount it as well. So we'll show you a bit of the install as we go.
It's good games.
Okay, top mount intercooler on. The kit came with all these braces and everything you see here, so now we've just got to plumb it up. It's another job off the list. Alright, we've got the intercooler on, and you can see Nick there just tightening some stuff up, talking into spec, obviously.
2 dogs with this one.
2 dogs over there.
Superior.
So on the cold side, this came in the kit and it's all plumbed up, just 2 90-degree elbows. We had to cut them a little bit. And then we've got these braces which came with the kit. So it fits up, it's in a really good position. Because this turbo's aftermarket, we're going to have to do a custom pipe from the inlet to the intercooler.
Yeah, day 4. Since we've bought a whole bunch of fittings, hopefully trying to finish a few projects now. We've got like heaps of Raceworks fittings, like to get all the boost gauges working, get all the fuel delivery working, all that kind of thing. So also picked up a couple more Raceworks gauges because my ones didn't have the warning, and because I don't know how this thing's been tuned, I wanted to make sure that like if it's running really high AGTs or the boost is like super AWOL, that I'm going to get an alert because I'll probably be focusing on other stuff. So these have got like warning systems in them, so definitely put them in.
Richard here, making a cameo appearance in the design and build episode. So we've got the Raceworks piping today. We're doing the intake in 3-inch. Now, I've since realised since my build that Raceworks actually do all these products. So for my build, I didn't use any of it. I was just going down to the local supplier like a chump. But Raceworks is a one-stop shop, so pretty stoked on it. So we're going to do 3-inch intake, and then we got to do a cooler pipe as well. Now, for my build, I did stainless, but I've since learnt how to TIG alley, and I think it's better, especially for heat dissipation. I mean, it's got a higher rate of heat transfer, and it's lighter, so it doesn't put as much strain on the silicon joiners. So we're going to do it out of alley today, and that means I get to whip out the TIG, which is my favourite part of working in the shed. Band tool, but I don't have one, so I'm just using some tape and an angle grinder. Good. Nick doesn't have a bevel, so we're just using some cardboard and a marker to get all the angles right. So we want to come up here and into there. So I mark there, and then we've got to cut a turn to suit, or a bend to suit. We've got to cut this tube on an angle. We want to make sure it's perfectly circular, so it's perpendicular to this bend at all times. So we use this zip tie here, and it really helps us to ensure that the cut will be perpendicular to the bend, and then it'll come out as a nice circle. So you can see here, this is a non-90, and it's come out perfectly circular, which tees up really nicely on that. We'll be able to use that. Back in the shed this morning, my favourite breakfast, morning dime bags. We're pretty much good here. We'll pull it off the car and lay some dime bags.
This is what makes the this much better than the Barra. Is this logo here gives it reliability.
Said no one ever. Alright, moment of truth, final install for the intake pipe. So it's all fully passed now. You know what they say? Just like a bought one. Nick's got this Demon Pro airbox, which I think is pretty common for patrols. So we've made a single piece pipe out of alley with 2 Raceworks silicon joiners at each end. We use Raceworks 3-inch bends 90s and a 30, so three 90s and 130, and then we've welded this 5/8 barb on, which is for the catch can. So it's a Raceworks weld-on fitting. So that's the intake all buttoned up. Now, if you didn't have a TIG, you could do this out of multiple silicon joiners, but I do think it is better in one piece, and I think most would agree with me. It definitely looks cleaner. So as far as the actual TIG welds go, I'm reasonably new to alley pipe welding, and I didn't have the best setup today as far as being comfortable on the welder. I was sort of using that plastic table, if you rewind the B-roll. So not my best work, absolutely not, but it'll get the job done, and hopefully it'll get us through, you know, a big canning trip. All right, we've got Ads. He's made a special appearance from New Zealand. Got him.
Less than 12 hours into Christmas and chill, and I'm under the bonnet of a bloody patrol again. Some call it fate, others will call it torture.
Ads on the TIG, so there's a bit of a rust patch there. He's fabricated a little panel. It's yeah, I mean, he's done a really good job of it. Just tigging it up now, putting a bit less heat in so he can do some longer passes on it. Yeah, Ads, do your best, grind the rest. We went to bolt the 2.8 bonnet up and we realised that the scoop was in the wrong direction, front to back. We went and picked up a bonnet less a hood scoop, and we picked it up a marketplace for around $200, which was on the cheaper end of things, and it just had a little rust hole, so we're fixing that. All you need is a little bit of skill and a TIG, and you're all good. So we saved ourselves a couple $100 here. You can get them brand new for about $500. Alrighty, rust repair all done. Looks beautiful. Good job, Ads. Chuck some primer on for us.
For a squid. Oh, it's not great. That's alright.
What are we doing, Ads?
Well, we're going to try and surprise Nick with an intercooler cutout on his bonnet. And we're going to start by measuring back from this firewall lip here. Both directions, we'll mark that out on the top of the bonnet. We'll do the same from the left and the right guard, and just triple check that we're going to cut this the right way before we make the cuts. And yeah, it should sit just inside the core on all sides, so it'll seal up nicely with the pinch weld that we've got in the kit that comes with it.
Beautiful. That was good, mate. Might give you a permanent gig on design.
Oh!
So what have we done to verify the position?
Well, we've got a template for the drill holes we've got to line up, but as you correctly identify, we're going to lose our ability to mark the center of our big square once it's cut out. So we've drilled a hole down somewhere. There it is, through the center of the bonnet. We've marked it on top, and then we dropped basically an Allen key with a dot of paint on the end of it to mark the center of the core. Well, to mark where that hole comes through, and then we've lined that up, and it looks like we're bang in the middle, which is where we want to be.
Cool, so we can get grinding now.
We can get grinding. Ideally with the bonnet off, but we could risk it.
Yeah, I like it. Fast and loose, no time for that. We're just drilling out the corners so we can get some clean angle grinding cuts. It's Christmas Eve. I should probably be with my family wrapping gifts, but we're here doing Nick's engine conversion. We've been at it for 4 long days now, and we're really close. We've got to do a little bit of wiring and a little bit more plumbing to wrap it up. But Nick has actually shot off early to family Christmas, like we should be, and we've installed this hood scoop without him knowing, so this is a little bit of a Christmas gift to him. So from Ads and Richard, and we're obviously going to paint this, and this is not graffiti by any means, but it's our Christmas present to Nick.
Happy Christmas, Nick.
Happy Christmas.
You should be here, you slack bastard. Someone's got to do the hard work.
Oh dear, Nick.
He's better at welding than he is at spelling. It's done.
It's done.
Merry Christmas.
That's it, we're out. Tools down.
We got to run. Swindle's mum's going to kill him.
And we've repurposed the gantry crane as a outdoor painting station, and this is all rust converter, all this black stuff. Woo! And then give it a paint with some primer today, and then into the paint station.
Probably never.
Probably never.
Primer grey for life. wearing the essential PPE.
So Super Cheap will mix up your paint code to match your car, and because I had to buy another bonnet to get that new scoop on, we got a couple of cans mixed up of the Patrol white.
Paint booth's pretty good.
It's not exactly the proper way of doing this, but it's the between Christmas and New Year's way of doing it. We're doing the classic install and then read the instructions. It says you need a bit of Loctite, so we'll do it properly. We've got Keezer here today. You might not have seen him before on the channel, but he's sorting out all the wiring. Not afraid of 12 volt. Things like the glow plug relays and the like temperature sensors and stuff like that. All sorted today. There's actually not much to these TD42s, which is why everyone likes running them. Keezer's not afraid of 12 volt or sending all the VBs in the fridge. So that's what we've been doing. There's just a couple more fittings we need for vacuum lines and things like that. All the fuel lines are all done. These motors have literally only got like glow plug relay, fuel pump, solenoid, a couple of sensors on the front here, but like 2 or 3, and that's pretty much it. Fly-by-wire accelerator that Keezer's just pulled out. And then what we're doing is putting in the TD42 one, which is a actual wire throttle. So we're just pushing that through the firewall now, and we'll run up here onto the fuel pump. So it's actually a cable throttle, because this motor is actually older than the one that we're replacing.
You should be right.
All right, cooling is on. Just done the oil. Shroud's on, fan is on. Vacuum sorted. We're getting close, real close. Last few bits and pieces, probably start it, have a beer. All right, we've got everything connected. We're gonna do the first run without fuel, just to let it build up the oil pressure. Make sure it turns over, make sure we get the wiring right, and then we'll connect the fuel and see if she idles. Good? Yep. Just tidying up the wiring, because there's a lot of wiring that the RD uses.
Delete.
All of that we no longer need. This is a design and built bracket that Richard will have to fix up at some point, because that sucks. Getting rid of the old SAS gauge, because that doesn't have an alarm.
Like full JDM spec when it turns on.
Look at that. Yeah, so what did this do?
Japanese. Just all the settings.
Oh! So I've had one Raceworks gauge in, which was the EGTs, and I'm now putting in the other Raceworks boost gauge. And I don't know if this is like a normal thing for gauges, but I just figured out Raceworks give you the cable to power it, which is this jobber, and you just tap it into whatever power, ground and dimming lights. But they also give you this patch cable, so you don't have to do it again. You just pinch it from another gauge, and because I've already got the EGT gauge, I just steal it from there, and it's way easier to wire. Man, how good's that? You just bang that in. So this is the old gauge. No alerts or anything like that. Oh, mate, how good's that? Look at that, out of the box, working gauge. Best bit of any new toy is getting this little plastic thing off. Ooh. Man, I'm so stoked at these gauges. I was just mucking around. Check this out. So you can hold the button down, is how you toggle through all the settings. It's on the front of the gauge as well. A lot of them on the back, which is super good. So now it's doing this fading thing. What I'm doing now is I'm setting the brightness of the gauge. And as I toggle through, you can actually see the gauge moving to set the brightness. You can have it completely off, like as a black gauge, or I want it just pretty dim while I'm driving. So I just leave it at that, and that's gonna set it in that color. And then I can switch in between the colors too. I reckon purple looks sick, so I'm going to stick with the purple.
Honest opinion about Raceworks gauges?
I'm actually really stoked on these. They don't, like a lot of the other gauges I've used in the past, like really bright. They're really, like you've almost got to wear sunnies at night. That's what this is here. It's like a sticker to go over the LED of another one, because at night, like sunny's on, it's impossible to drive. Where these, that blue light or that red light, real good. Extra cushioning on the buttons, another feature that I mentioned. Alright, got the last little bits now. We're like literally just putting in, had to put another switch in for the intercooler fan. It's not great, but I don't have a spare Carling switch. Literally the last little bits now, putting the gear sticks back together. Bonnet goes on, and TD42 in 4.2 days. I think we're finally done. 4.2 days in total. Nah, a bit more than that. But yeah, I think we've got everything. We're literally going to go for a cruise, and hopefully you won't see us again. Testing out the 4.2 on the beach. You beauty. Just enjoying the York Peninsula. It's bloody nice taking the new TD42 for a spin. One recommendation for doing a conversion is make sure you Loctite your drive shaft bolts, because I don't reckon it's supposed to look like that. Yeah!
Alright, Nick, what are your thoughts on the difficulty of engine conversion?
I honestly thought it was going to be harder than it actually was. Like, a lot of the little fiddly bits was like the fittings and stuff like that. But other than that, like, total build time, it was over Christmas, New Year, so we did struggle with shops and stuff like that. But like, we were bashing on about 4.2 days. Look, we weren't far off. It was probably a week, a couple of mates, a week to get it going, and then another couple of weeks or weekends of just little fiddly bits, just those little like 1%ers. But I mean, 1 week conversion, then I spent 10 days on York Peninsula running it, and I only dropped a drive shaft and burnt a whole bunch of oil. So if you are thinking about doing an engine conversion, this is actually a reasonably easy one. I'm not an expert mechanic. I spend most of my time sending emails, but basic tools and a couple of mates, a couple of beers, and a couple of pizzas, and we were done. So one of the things we fixed up after we finished was I was running RD28 drive shafts, which got the smaller flange. I didn't have a bigger flange. They are bigger. Luckily, Fabian lent us his old flange of his diff, which, if you look at it closely, he's made a mess of. So he didn't need the flange from that anymore. So I've pinched that one, and now have put the TD42 drive shafts in, which are much bigger than the RD ones. So for this conversion, I know that TDs are renowned for overheating. I didn't want to play with the cooling too much, so I'm actually running a standard water pump, standard like genuine hoses, and a standard radiator. One thing I did do was I put this pinch weld and some foam down the side, just to make sure the air passes through the radiator. Genuine fan, genuine hub, like stock as a rock, and it runs great. It runs at 70, 80 degrees.
All right, Nick, what did you have to do to your fuel system to make it work with this 4.2 motor?
So this has got the 11mm pump. I did notice that the feed line for the 11mm pump is actually a 10mm hose, where the RD28 is an 8mm. So all I did is I replaced this fitting here to be a 10mm. I did have a check valve in the RD28, like a no return valve, what are they called? And I put that in on the TD42, and it was actually starving of the fuel a bit. You could feel it when you were giving it a stomp in third gear. So I've since taken that out. It's just running 10mm hose straight out of the filter into the pump, and it seems to be great. So to make sure it wasn't starving, we actually ran it up on the dyno. They didn't end up changing anything from the previous tune. I just wanted to make sure that the fuel ratios and stuff were fine. It wasn't getting over boosted. Apparently these are good, like decent figures for an 11mm. It's max or take. So, you know, let the internet decide on that one. I'm happy. It's way more than I ever had in the RD28. Like, I can actually do 110 now, which is wild. I towed the boat the other day for the first time at 100. Anyone who's got an RD28 and you're thinking about it, I mean, total build about $8,000. Probably eight to 10 grand by the time I sold the old motor. It's a no-brainer. 4.5 days with a couple of mates. When I bought it, I opted for the silver top TD42 because that's that fella on Marketplace was selling with the whole kit. Since then, I didn't actually realise that the silver top comes with the vacuum pump behind the alternator. It's not bad, it's just a bit fiddly with the air conditioning pipes. They're right behind that vacuum pump. I tried to change an alternator today and it took me ages. You can actually change the vacuum pump from the TD42 NAs, which this model is, to the TD42 TI vacuum pumps, which I've got here, so you just need to change the back plate. So it's just something to consider if you're thinking about doing a TD42 conversion. The silver top's really popular. It's really easy to find a lot of them. The black top has that vacuum pump on the back. Just out of preference, I would like it. There's a lot more options with alternators, no vacuum pumps on the back. Just a bit easier. You can get a 100 amp alternator, no problem. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I really enjoyed doing this conversion. I learnt a lot. You'll probably see a lot more of this car and myself in an upcoming trip, which will drop in about a month's time. Got it.